What's up, guys? Back at it. I wanted to show you the progress I've made on the wiring. Wiring is almost complete with the exception of a few little odds and ends that I'm trying to figure out. Um, the one that comes to mind is the reverse switch from the 4-speed manual trans to the reverse light. The wire harness that I have is not a factory wiring harness. Obviously, it's a American Auto wire. So the color codes that are listed in the schematic are, like the black wire is purple instead of, or I'm sorry, the purple wire is actually black with the white tracer and whatever. So I got to work through that. It's really just the indicator on the dash when you're in reverse that comes on, so you don't pop the clutch and go backwards fast. So that's not a big deal. I've got my headlight switch, still hasn't shown up yet. Brake switch, I have that. I just got to drill out a little tab, just little odds and ends, nothing major. Everything is powered. The Dakota Digital is all wired up. Let's see if I can show you that. Got all the wires landed up in there. So you can see it. It's kind of hard to see, but everything's landed there. That's going to be landed. These guys up here, they're little twisted pairs from the back of the turn signal ports on the back of the housing for the dash. Those are actually just for having a turn signal warning light. So basically, if you pull an old man such as me driving down the street on the freeway with his blinker on, it shows up in the dash, so you get like a visual warning or a reminder, hey, turn your blinker off, dummy, that kind of thing. But the inputs for the blinkers actually come from the harness, and so basically left turn signal indicator, right signal indicator, high beam lights, all that stuff shows up in the stock locations on the dash bezel. So all that's all legit, ready to go and hooked up. My air fuel gauge, I did affix that to the dash. Didn't drill any holes, of course. You know how weird I am about that. I just zip tied that little, and I made this little gauge thing here. So that'll make tuning on the carburetor a lot easier. But other than that, everything's pretty much connected and ready. I still have to make some battery cables, specifically the grounds. I need to get a battery. But as you can see, everything's pretty much ran where it's going to be. I do want to wrap all of this stuff in either the Holley TechFlex, like this stuff here. It's kind of like a braided chafe-proof kind of thing. I do have to do my battery connection wires from the air conditioning circuit breaker. From this, I need to feed from the battery to this. Chassis ground, dash to chassis ground, engine to chassis ground. That stuff is all big wire stuff. I have a couple of ignition feeds here that I'm just going to leave there in case I'm forgetting something. I can always depin those later, but having an ignition feed under the dash is always nice to have, just for fun and ease of maintenance or whatever. If I'm gonna install something, I do still have to wire my relays for my headlights. I'm gonna do a relay for the high beams and a relay for the low beams, so they have their own individuals because they are their own wires. So I still have to do that, but that's not really critical at this time. Yeah, so that's about it for the wiring. I still need to tidy things up, but that's no fun to watch. So I am now working on the brakes. So I've got a few issues here that I need to address. I tried to move that proportioning valve over to this side because I don't like how it's so close to the paint on the inner fender. But the bracket is not universal, it won't go over there. So I tried that this morning and it was a fail. So it's cool over here. I mean, it's more accessible to turn that knob, which is fine. I just kind of wanted to have it more of a straight shot to run the lines straight down to it, but it is what it is. So as you can see, I've got a little piece of TIG welding rod, 16th rod. It's just regular metal filler. or steel filler rod. And so that's what I do. I have to make some brake lines, and so I basically bend them up out of that stuff, and it's relatively cheap. I've got some old dirty rods sitting around that I can use, and it's certainly a lot cheaper than bending up a bunch of brake lines, and so that gets me close to where I need to be. What's kind of weird about this whole setup, not only does the proportioning valve complicate things a little with respect to the stock, the shuttle valve down there, it's got plenty of ports, and there's plenty of room to add these things. I'm not going to do two fronts. Like, there's two front outputs on this proportioning valve for the front brakes, so you can actually run an individual line to each wheel up in the front. In the rear is just a single. So I'm not going to do that. I've got two different lines. So this is the passenger line right here, and the driver's side line is right here. These both go to, this is the driver's side here. Oh, sorry. This is the driver's side, and this is supposed to be the passenger side front brakes. And unfortunately, the rear brake is going to be on the very, well, it'd be the front bottom in this case. So I've got some brake lines to make. Not a big deal, just takes time, and trying to keep them away from the headers, away from the steering column. So there's a lot of stuff to think about. It's kind of a busy little area, and of course the headers. So as you can see how I do this stuff, it actually, I just put the rod right straight in the center, so it gives me a good good idea of the space I'm going to get what if I bend the rod that way. And you can kind of see how I was looking to route this that way. So I'll have to fine tune it, of course. I don't want the brake lines rubbing on the inner fender. So but I have a few holes down there I can utilize for some Adel clamps. And something also I'm not used to is this car obviously isn't a frame or body on frame type of car. It's a unibody. So I was thinking, a lot of times you see the brake lines wrapped in at least one coil between the master cylinder and the distribution block. And that's for chassis flex or body flex on top of the frame. And in off-road, it's a must. You have to, the body moves on top of the frame, sometimes a little too much, and you don't want your brake lines pulling out or breaking. So this car is going to be pretty stiff, so I don't think I'm going to need that. And I'm probably going to eat my words by saying this, but it just seems like I could probably get away without it in such a busy little corner. So you guys can say I told you so when one of them pops, but that's the plan. It'll be a cleaner look, and that's the plan. So, but anyway, working along here. Haven't forgotten about you guys. We've got tons of content coming your way. Thankfully, I'm actually ahead of the curve on content. This stuff just takes a while. It just, as you know, this car it's been a year and a half, and I've been doing it for a year and a half almost every single day. So if that doesn't give you an idea, I don't know what will, of how much work this is. So trying to keep it exciting for you guys, interesting. It's not always possible. It's not all roses, let me tell you. Even when you're working with new parts, it's not. So one last thing before I get down to brake lines. I wanted to I went up in the attic and pulled down all the bright work, all the stainless trim that goes around the whole windows, and basically the whole car's naked right now. So basically all the bright work that goes around all the windows, the track. I have every window except for the windshield, which is good, and it's all that green glass because the car was an air conditioning car, but you can kind of see it over there. So I've got all the glass pulled down, but all of this is the bright work, and I think I'm just missing two fender trim pieces. So hopefully all this stuff comes out good, and I can see a few dents here and there, but luckily it's all there. And I'm going to try to use it if I can. So I just wanted to show you guys that is coming, and we're moving along. So all right, let's get on these brake lines. I'll show you when I have these things mocked up. All right, so I got a confession to make. The remember the wires that I depinned off the bulkhead connector? One was a brown, unmarked, so no writing on it basically, and then there was a yellow, unmarked as well. On one page, I actually thought it alluded to using those two for the ballast resistor, which would have two ignition, or two circuits for starting, ignition 1 and ignition 2. However, the yellow one is the trigger for the ignition switch, so I needed to put that back in. Luckily, it's really easy. You just basically take the harness you pulled out, you just spread those little things back out after you've crimped them to remove them, and run it back in there. So that's what I did. And the backup light switch gets triggered by this guy here. So this is actually marked backup light switch. I depinned it because I wasn't aware that this actually goes to the transmission. So this guy goes to the trans on one side of that reverse switch, and then this guy actually goes to the solenoid on this pin right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Basically, this isn't a ground. It says I on the pole, so ignition. And then my starter solenoid relay wire, I just landed that on the starter down there. And I'm kind of doubling up, or making this a redundant deal. So I've got a starter solenoid here on the firewall, which is stock, and then there's also a solenoid down there on the starter itself. So it's kind of redundant in a way, but it's also it's going to do the same thing basically. So I'm going to keep it that way. I kind of like the stock look. Well, sort of, but yeah. So I'm gonna cut this guy back, this yellow guy, and land it on there, and then I'll run this guy to the trans. But I'll show you that once I get there. Morning, guys. I'm back at it on the charger still, as you can imagine. I think the last segment was me showing you guys that Barkeeper's Friend works, and that I love that stuff. It works great. I've never even heard of it before, so it was a win. Got all my glass cleaned up. It's all green, which means it came from an air conditioning car, and it was actually original to the car too, so that's pretty cool. I have all the glass besides the windshield, and luckily the aftermarket makes a green windshield, so that, I mean, maybe it doesn't match exactly, but I'll be cool with that. It is just a driver, so we're not trying to go for a showstopper here. But I am gonna add the relays to the headlight wiring, and the reason you do that, or so I understand, is because you get actually more voltage to the headlights through a relay. So the relay actually has its own battery feed, and that's primarily why you're getting more voltage to the headlights, which means they are brighter. So instead, or I guess the other way, the factory way of doing it, runs all that voltage when the switch is depressed through the headlight switch, which tends to make the wires really hot and brittle. Over time they can fail at the connections and so on and so forth, and plus they're like candles in a lantern basically from the factory, so it doesn't do anybody any good to have headlights that are not bright enough. So as you can see, I'm surrounded in steering column parts, and we've got our window regulators freshly blasted and painted. We're still cracking at it. We're probably going to start installing the windows next week, which will be probably in 10 minutes for you guys. That's going to be a feat in itself. There's so many moving parts to these windows, and I never take good enough pictures to know where I'm at, so yay for me. But I want to show you this headlight wiring thing for those of you who don't know. It's a really old trick. It's been around forever, and you can use it on many different applications, not just headlights. When voltage is a primary concern, such as like fuel pumps, especially big ones, you want to run a relay for those. So, but anyway, here's the basic diagram. It's actually not really a diagram, but it's just something that I wrote out. So this is standard cube relay, basically, just like one of these little deals. And get the best one you can find. These, who knows where these are made? They're cheapos. And the only thing different that I'm going to do here is I'm going to run two relays. So one for the low beams and one for the high beams. And the reason I'm going to do that is for redundancy. Let's face it, like I just previously said, the relays, you don't know where they're made. They're probably very cheap. So buy the best ones you can, but because it's headlights, I want to have a redundancy, so if one relay fails, I still have either high beams or low beams to fall back on. I still need to do it to that truck. For some reason I completely spaced that, and the headlights are in fact like candles in a lantern, so they don't work. And also that's the only lighting I have on this truck at the moment. So alright, so back to this. So again, all these relays are going to have generally the same thing. This is a 5-pin relay. The 85 pole is always ground, so chassis ground. Luckily I have a ground here where the factory put it. I'm going to probably land it there. We have the 30 pole, or the number 30 pole, gets the battery feed, so this is going directly to the battery or your junction, your fused block there. You want to fuse that because it'll be actually susceptible to grounding out, so you want to put an inline fuse in that. I just remembered, I don't know if I have that. Here's the switched 12 volts, so your ignition power, and then the lighting's basically the lighting. So this is going to, 87 is going to be connected to the original lighting feed, which in this case you can see the headlight low beam right here, and the high beam is that lime colored green one. So those are typically ran directly to the back of the headlight socket, or plug, connector, whatever you want to call it, that thing down there. Let's focus. There we go. So that little guy right there, you can see the green there for the high beams. So that's where I'm going to connect them. I've already cut them, and pull them back here. I don't know. As you can hear, they're trimming the trees at the park. This is the 4th day in a row. Lucky me. So sorry about the background noise. So I cut these guys. These are ready to go on the relay. I just have to make up the ends real quick and land them on each relay. So give me a sec and I'll be right back. All right. Kind of cut these at a diagonal for some reason. Not thinking. I like to try to keep all my wires the same length, just so it's neat when it goes together. Got my buddy John coming over to help him with his bike this morning. Maybe I'll do some filming on that. It's a 2022 Husqvarna 501, which is the bike I used to own. Awesome bike. He just wanted to do a couple maintenance upgrades on this thing. Nothing real serious. But as you may not know, we are well versed in motorcycles, side-by-sides, and classic cars. That's kind of our passion here. Cut all my shrink wrap about the same length so it doesn't look goofy. It might. Four. Oops. This is 4. I always load the shrink wrap on first before I forget. And then in this case, I'm going to use just the regular spade connectors that come with the American Auto Wire kits. I've installed several, so I have extras laying around, which is always nice. The idea is to use the shrink wrap around the connector so it insulates the connector from rusting and going bad. I've used those plastic ones. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with those. You can use them if you have them. I'm just trying to make everything uniform on this car so it's all the same. Do my tug. I'm going to start doing exhaust here pretty soon. I know I've said that in a previous video, but I've been kind of reluctant to do it because I don't have a drive shaft in there, but you know, I think I'm just going to go for it. Just get one thing, get it knocked down one at a time. That's how you got to build these things, just one thing at a time. Let me go grab a heat gun real quick. I'll be right back. Boy, I sure could use a cordless heat gun. I didn't realize they made those. I just watched a video the other day. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta have one of those things. That would be awesome. I'd also like to have another or a cordless heat or 4.5 inch grinder. So Santa, if you're listening, please bring those two things for me. That'd be great. Thank you. These have that little barb on the back. You don't need it for this particular thing, so I just flatten them down. It helps putting the heat shrink over these. Makes it a lot easier. And I just put it basically just in line with the end, and in the center, the top part actually keeps it open from shrinking all the way closed. There we go. So basically that's what you're going to end up with, or what you're looking to end up with. And you might have to trim a little bit on the end with the razor blade. Let me go grab that. I'll be right back. I started buying my razor blades at Harbor Freight, and that is the best deal in town, I'll tell you that. I don't know how good they are, but I guess we'll find out. We just got a new Harbor Freight near our office, and we're really excited about it. Dangerous. Very dangerous. There we go. So basically this is just keeping the connector shrouded and hopefully corrosion free. This car is not going to see a lot of water driving, but I mean it's going to. At some point it's going to rain and I'm going to be driving it, so just trying to make the necessary precautions here. Bought some aluminum oxide as well for my Media Blaster, and it's half the price of what Eastwood charged, so I guess that's, hopefully it's good. Okay, so switch leg. So this is, instead of running an ignition, I think I misled you when I was originally talking about this. So if you were to have an accessory, say just one light, and you wanted it to run through this relay, or have the relay power one light aside from headlights, the power wire that runs to the headlights, like I was talking about going to that plug, is your switch leg. So it already has ignition power going to it, in other words. So hopefully that makes sense. But you don't need to run another ignition switch, or I'm sorry, ignition wire to this relay, because these guys already are powered by the ignition, or the fuse block, in other words. So these guys, I'm going to go headlight, low beam first. 86. This is the beauty of the Velcro also, actually. Run these under this big power wire. Oh great, yeah, they got the wood chipper going now too, so hopefully it's not too hard to hear me. So 86, which is our switch leg. Low beam. Those done. Now we'll worry about the other side of these, which I'm going to redo the plug just because I have to extend the wire. I screwed up. I should have done this while I was wiring the headlights, but that's alright. I could just go to the first plug and extend that wire and just put a new connector on it. So now I'm going to get my ground wires. So let me go make a couple grounds. I will be right back. Alright guys, back to it. My buddy's bike just took a little longer than I expected. All good, but I am prepping these wires to run. I landed my low beam, high beam wires on the 86, and that's the switch, or basically the signal coming from the light switch in. And I ran 2 grounds into one connector and shrink wrapped it. I'm just going to put it at the stock location ground here. Nice and simple, won't hurt anybody's feelings. And so now I'm working on the battery feed wires. I decided to go with the number 10 wire on this, substantially bigger than most other wires in the car. So I'm just going to put these on some connectors. A lot of times what I like to do is just grab a strand of wire, and I usually keep stuff about up to about half of what I'm holding here just for ground wires, and you just never know. So keep your scraps to an extent. They help out a lot, but as we know, everything has gotten out of control expensive. So why not give yourself a chance and give your future self a chance at getting a project finished with what he's got on hand. Or just be like a Mopar guy, never throw anything away. I don't know why that is. Those guys, they're all like that. That's cool. They have all the stuff. That's probably why they do it. Yeah, they make pliers that do this really fast, but I don't have them. Don't forget to pull the little barb flat, otherwise you won't be able to get your shrink wrap on where you want it. So shrink wrap will hopefully alleviate some corrosion concerns. And I'll just make up both of them while I'm doing it. There we go. Sounds like the wife just got home. Thankfully there was no damage. The cat will live another day. Excuse me. So all that's left is basically reconfiguring the wires that feed from the relay, which will now be the switch leg. So, because before, the high and low beam wires coming out were the switch legs in my mind. Once you cut them, the next leg that sends power to the resistor or device that you're powering is going to be the new switch leg. So essentially the wires, the high-low beam wires, are getting ignition power to this point and engaging the relay. So hopefully this has helped you. I'm not done. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna call it for the night. So I will see you tomorrow.